Your next project is to design a typographic postcard. So, for this project, you are going to design the front and back of what will be a printed postcard that is 4 inches by 6 inches. That's a pretty standard size. And the postcard is meant to advertise a design related position of your choice. So, having learned about design practices, you are going to go out and look at job postings that are related to design, and pull that information into your designed postcard. So, some of the limitations are that you can only use a single typeface, different weights and sizes are okay. And basic typographic elements like type, line, and shapes. So, no photographs here, no illustrations. You can also only use two colors, plus black, white, and gray. Tints and shades of those colors are okay, so I'm expanding the amount of colors you can work with. And then again, really important to note that you can only use one typeface. So that's the format, front and back of the postcard. And the content that is going to go on that, so this is what you're going to take from that job listing, are at least the job title, the company, the employment location, like geographically, the qualifications or the skills that are needed there, and then a brief description of the responsibilities of that role, as well as the expected pay range. And if the job doesn't have that, I know a lot of them don't, you can substitute that with Bureau of Labor Statistics, the median pay for whatever the position is, or you can look at sources like ONET data. You can also find another very similar posting and substitute the pay with that related postings information. So job listings are going to vary greatly in length. These are typically just like walls of text. So what you're going to need to do for a lot of these is do some copy editing to trim down what is provided into something that makes sense and looks good on a postcard, while also including all of this required information. The focus here as you're working is to, again, think about composition. We're always thinking about that as designers, but also to put a heavy focus on typography and legibility and readability, and how you can maintain those things while making the design interesting, and then also to understand what design roles look like right now and what the job market looks like. So this is my not perfect, but acceptable example of what this might look like. So this is a posting I found for a news applications developer, which doesn't sound like a design position, but then when you read the skills that this job requires, it very much is a job for a designer, along with some additional skills like we've talked about for UX design and a little bit of development. So on the left is the front of that postcard, and then when you flip it over, I have all that other required information that the project requires. And I'm only using typography to make this look nice, and then some of those fundamental like primary elements of design like point, line, and shape to also create visual interest, because letters are also just shapes, and so they relate very well with shapes and basic geometric elements. This can either be vertical or horizontal. That's up to you which orientation you want to design this in, but the aspect ratio is 4 inches by 6 inches. So this is what that original job posting looked like. I just copied all of that information and threw it into a document so that I could reference back to it and pull that information out. So I started there with the project, and then started to work towards some mood boards to think about design styles I might pursue. So in this one, I was thinking very much about the news aspect of that job posting, thinking about what reporters, like what the visuals of reporting as a profession might look like, things like redactions, things like documents. And then that made me think of investigative reporting in like the 60s and 70s. And so that led into some of this very Bauhaus international style design work in typography and basic shape that are up on the screen as well. I was also thinking about an approach that used type in a more modern, like exciting and colorful way. This is a job posting. You want people to pick it up and be excited about it. You're trying to attract attention. So I was looking at typographic design that was eye-catching and exciting. But this didn't relate back to the subject matter very well. And then finally, I was taking inspiration from the applications that these news application designers use. So I was looking at this programming library called D3 that I know they use and pulling inspiration from what that looks like. So a lot of things like charts, a lot of things like circles and half circles in use, and then other designs that were also using those geometric elements, which I knew would relate well with typography. Once I had some examples of visual style, I started to do type studies. So we'll talk about this, but this is where you are looking for the right typeface for a design job and then experimenting with the typographic hierarchy. So looking at what a typeface looks like in any pairings like headings, subheadings, and body copy. You will definitely need different levels of information in this project. And then also looking at things like the width of text, the size of text, the spacing between lines, so the leading, any tracking or letter spacing that needs to be done in headlines, and then seeing what type of texture or voice that gives for the design to help you choose which typeface you might want to use. So I start a few here, and then of course doing thumbnail sketches, looking at layouts that might have visual interest from kind of a high level, just to get ideas out on the page, and also to look at sort of the macro composition. And then finally moving into digitization and refinement of that. So that might be your process. That is what I suggest. But you'll definitely need to move through ideation, looking at typefaces and doing some type studies, and then of course critique and digital refinement. These are just a few more examples of what type-driven design projects look like. You'll find plenty more. Typography is a really powerful design tool. You really don't need anything more than it to do good design work. These are some examples from Joseph Mueller-Brockmann, who is very influential in bringing this style into the design world. This is Michael Beirut. And then some more modern typographic examples of how type-driven design is also interplaying with shape and elements and color in a more like vibrant way that we see in modern design and branding. So you can take note in all of these, the role that shape is also playing here. So don't be afraid to use things like line and shape in your work. Okay, I hope that gives you a good explanation as well as some examples to think about to inspire you. And good luck on this project.